All right, I believe we are live. Welcome. It is Wednesday, April 14th, and we are gathered as a joint standing committee for the environment and natural resources. We have a day of work sessions planned and some language review. And we'll start with introductions. Representative Bell.
Good morning. Art Bell, House Seat 47, Yarmouth, Chesapeake, and Long Island.
And Representative Ziegler.
Morning. I'm Representative Paige Ziegler from District 96 in Waldo County, the 7 towns of Belmont, Liberty, Lincolnville, Montville, Morrill, Palermo, and Searsmont. And I will be in and out today because the EUT committee is having a presentation.
And Representative Johansson.
Good morning, Chris Johansson, House District 145, the 18 organized towns between Bridgewater and Sherman.
Representative Dudera.
Hi, everybody. I am Vicki Dudera. I represent House District 94, the towns of Camden, Islesboro, and Rockport. Lovely to see everybody.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, good morning and thank you. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which is Pittston, Alna, Wiscasset, and Nahumgeg Island in the Kennebec.
And my co-chair, Representative Tucker.
Good morning. My name is Ralph Tucker. I represent half of the town of Brunswick in the Maine House of Representatives, House District number 50. Thank you.
And I'm Stacy Brenner. I represent Senate District 30, which is most of Scarborough, part of Gorham, and all of Buxton. I'm going to turn my phone off. And we're also joined by, Representative Bloom. We're just doing introductions.
Oh, how perfect. I'm Representative Lydia Bloom. I represent House District 3 in York.
Welcome. And we're also joined by Dan Tartikoff, our OPLA analyst, and Sabrina Carey, our clerk. So once again, the chat feature, we will only have discussions in the chat feature that are about logistics. So if you could refrain from using the chat for anything substantive. Yes, Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative O'Connor has contacted me and her computer is not functioning.
Okay.
So she'll try to get online as soon as she can. And
Okay.
I spoke with Senator Bennett a short while ago. He has a bunch of presentations he has to make, but he's going to try to be in and out as he can.
Okay. Everyone's managing their calendar today. I should also let you know that at some point I have to pop out to offer testimony on a bill as well. Yes, Representative Tucker.
And can we just please remind everybody about the procedure for registering your vote? If you happen to be absent for a moment when the vote is taken, I understand that you contact the presiding officer in your respective chamber. Is that how it works?
What I understand is that Sabrina will send out an email to everyone who was not present for a vote that will indicate what vote was taken and what the results were, and then ask for information on what your vote is, and then she forwards that on to the presiding officer.
Okay, thank you.
Is that, have I listed that process correctly as far as you understand it, Sabrina?
The only difference is I'm gonna CC the presiding, not the presiding officers directly, but both Rose and Lynn for the either party, like either House or the Senate, and they will cast your vote as well. So it kind of like just makes the step one email quicker.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Representative Hanley?
Yes, when I have missed votes in taxation, I have to call the speaker's office and cast my vote there. I do get emails from Sabrina and the clerk in the taxation committee, but that's only to confirm my actual vote, not to make the vote. In order to cast the vote, I have to go to the speaker's office.
As of this morning, I will be sending out the email that you will need to respond to to cast your vote. Or you can still do it by phone, or you can stop in, because you're here, Representative Hanley, you can stop in at a LIO to sign it physically if you really would like to.
Okay, that's a change in procedures that we've been following.
Yes,
which
as
is
of
good.
this morning. Yep.
Somehow Senator Bennett is not a panelist, but an attendee. So I'm going to move him over. Or we can just leave him there. Just kidding. All right, let's see. Did we get him over? While we're waiting, Representative Gramlich, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Senator. I am Lori Gramlich, and I represent House District 13, which is the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach.
Wonderful, thanks. And Senator Bennett, if you can hear us, we can't see you, but if you wanted to introduce yourself, now would be a great time.
Hello. I'm in this strange spot over here, the State House, and that may have caused the trouble. Thank you, Senator. I'm Rick Bennett. I have the privilege of representing 13 towns in Western Maine in the State Senate. Thank you.
All right. Now that we have a nice assembly of folks, we will go ahead and get started with our work sessions for the day. We're going to go in this order, just if it's helpful for folks to hear the order. We're going to start with 618 and 1023. Then we'll do 780, 802, 809, 872, 960. Those are all bills that Dan has helped us with. And then Deirdre will be back from EUT, and she's helped us with 771 and 940. So that's today's order. So let's go ahead and get started with 618 and 1023. And those are the bills about balloons. So Dan, want to walk us through?
Sure. So I just sent you an email. It should be on the top of your pile with the bill analysis. These are two bills, one from Representative Bloom and one from Representative McDonald, that both address balloon litter. I'm not going to go into the exact details, and you could see in the analysis the summaries of the bills and the individuals that testified in favor. Unless I missed it, there were no opponents or persons testifying either for nor against. As noted by multiple speakers, LD 618, Representative Bloom's bill, is essentially a reintroduction of the majority report amendment to LD 937, an act regarding the sale and release or abandonment of balloons, which was considered by ENR in 2019, but which ultimately died in non-concurrence. In its original form, LD 937 included in the litter laws a definition for balloon that's identical to that in LD 1023, as well as an amendment to the definition of litter to include waste materials from outdoor balloon releases. It also included a requirement for persons selling balloons to register with the DEP and to display signage with warning information about balloons. I have some notes here. Other state or local action, there was testimony suggesting that at least 5 states, California, Connecticut, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia were listed, and a number of cities and towns in the US that have adopted similar balloon release restrictions. The definition of balloon LD 1023. I've noted here that during the hearing on LD 937 in 2019, which contained that same definition for balloon, the committee heard concerns that the definition might be overly broad and could include items not generally thought of as balloons, such as latex gloves. The majority report to LD 937 opted to remove that definition entirely, which is why you don't see it in LD 618. There's a note here on balloon release penalties. LD 1023 amends the litter laws to include the following language. It is a violation of this chapter for a person to intentionally release or cause to be released outdoors a balloon. LD 618 contains slightly different language, but with largely the same intent to establish a violation of the litter laws based solely on an intentional release of balloons. I've noted here, though, that under the litter laws, penalties for violations are based upon the size or weight of the litter, So even a massive release of balloons might only result in a very small amount of litter by weight. The tiered penalty structure in LD 618 that focuses on the number of balloons released instead of weight would provide for greater penalties for so-called mass balloon releases. In the bill, that would be a release of greater than 10 balloons, whereas the penalty for a release under LD 1023 would likely be dependent upon the weight of the resulting litter, assuming that litter could be located. Representative McDonald, in her testimony, proposed an amendment to LD 1023 to incorporate the same exception in 618 for the release of a balloon carrying a scientific instrument, a balloon for meteorological observation by a government or scientific organization, or a hot air balloon. The Surfrider Foundation proposed incorporating the definition of balloon from LD 1023 into LD 618. I've also noted here that at the end of the public hearing, there were some information requests that were made of myself by committee members pertaining to the current state of littering violations in Maine. As I've noted here, the littering statute provides for civil penalties only for littering violations. In other words, there are no criminal violations of the littering law available. I consulted the judicial branch and the Kennebec County DA's office regarding the data and information it has on littering violations. And I've included the information here, and I sent this to you earlier when I received it. But since July 2004, the Judicial Department has recorded 2,208 violations for littering under Title 17, the littering laws, into its computer system. There isn't information available or readily available regarding how many of those instances actually had court hearings and how many of them were just an uncontested payment of the fine under the law. For what it's worth, 85% of those violations were for the lowest level of littering penalty, which is essentially a $100 fine. Since 2003, the Kennebec County DA's office has only inputted a charge for littering into its computer system 11 times. But as DA Megan Maloney noted to me, it was not up until the beginning of this year their process to input littering cases where the offender paid the fine, where there was no court hearing. And presumably that could be a large amount of them. So I don't know how useful that data is. We don't have fiscal information yet for either bill, but I have noted that the fiscal note for the majority report to 937, which I've also noted is identical to 618, reflected minor general fund cost and revenue increases and a minor other special revenue fund cost increase, and included the following description. The additional workload associated with the minimal number of new cases filed in the court system does not require additional funding at this time. The collection of additional fine revenue will increase the general fund and dedicated revenue by minor amounts. I'm happy to answer any questions about this analysis or about the bills generally.
Thanks, Dan. That was helpful. I'm going to acknowledge Representative Tucker.
Thank you very much. I would propose that we address these two bills in the following manner. I will now make a motion ought to pass on LD 1023. And then after the vote on that bill, we can then take up LD 618. Is there a second for my motion on ought to pass for 1023? If there is, I'd like to make a comment.
Second.
Okay. Dan has basically stole all my thunder. This bill has been pending with the legislature for a couple of years now. Some of us have followed it more carefully than the appropriations bill. I have spoken with the sponsors of each bill. I've circled back with the DEP. And it appears to me the best way to handle this is to take LD 1023, strip the language, and in place, amend 1023 to include the language which currently exists for LD 618. The reason for combining the bills in this way is the following. Trying to define what a balloon is not really required here because we're not trying to regulate the balloons themselves. We're simply defining a balloon as litter. And the definition of litter incorporates balloons already. The reason that we add balloon to the litter law is simply to make it more public so that the people who advertise organized balloon releases will realize that. Also, the language in 618 is good in that it requires staggered punishment, not based on poundage, but based on the number of balloons. Again, targeting the organized balloon release. Thirdly, 618 contains the exception for weather balloons and hot air balloons. Therefore, that's the explanation for my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tucker. Any comments, thoughts from the committee? All right, we have a motion on the floor. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, Sabrina, we're ready for you to call the roll.
Okay. Senator Brenner,
Yes.
Representative Tucker,
Yes.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
Chip stepped out for a second. Might be able to come back to him in a second.
okay. Senator Carney, absent. Representative Bell,
Yes.
Representative Bloom,
Yes.
Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich,
Yes.
Representative Johansson,
No.
Representative O'Connor,
No.
Representative Toole, absent. Representative Ziegler,
When you say the
Yes.
greenhouse, are you talking about the tomato grower in your area? That is correct. Yep. And you had to
Can
run
you
a
hear me?
direct
Can you see me?
distribution line in for them? We did. Yep, about 10 miles of
I'm on my phone.
line for them. And was that paid directly by the
You
customer?
just
or
need
is
your
that
vote,
for all
Representative
the-
Ziegler.
It was directly by the customer.
You can see and hear me,
Is that line
correct?
benefiting
Yes.
them? And they
Okay, I'm on the
took out
phone,
a,
so I'm gonna
bond.
I can
and they're halfway through the payment.
catch
of
what's
that
going
bond.
on. Thanks.
Okay.
Good.
We'll have him call his vote in, I think. And that's what's happening over at ENR right now, or EUT. That's kind of funny.
Representative Hanley just walked back if you'd like to get his vote. He just came in. They just took a vote on that balloon thing.
Okay.
all right. Representative Hanley, we're voting on 1023. I haven't tallied it yet, so if you want to vote.
Was the motion ought to pass as
Ought to
amended?
pass.
My vote will be no.
Is that in ought not to pass? As a,
Was the motion ought to pass as amended?
Yes, it is.
Okay, my vote would be no.
And I think Sabrina's just checking in about the minority report.
Ought not to pass.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well,
Is she going to read back the results?
Yes, 7 yes, 3 no, and 3 absent.
Representative Tucker.
I would like to move on LD 618, ought not to pass.
Do we have a second? Senator Bennett?
I'll second.
So I believe we're ready for a vote.
Okay. Senator Brenner,
Yes.
Representative Tucker,
Yes.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
Yes.
Senator Carney, absent. Representative Bell,
Yes.
Representative Bloom,
Yes.
Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich,
Yes.
Representative Johansson,
Yes.
Representative O'Connor,
Yes.
Representative Toole, absent. Representative Ziegler,
Yes.
An exemption for cooperatives was enacted. And Fox Islands Electric is
11 yes,
considered
2 absent.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And with that, we will move on to 780. And 780, just as a reminder, an act regarding uncontrolled hazardous substance sites. So Dan, I'll pass it over to you.
So like the last one, you should have just gotten an analysis for 780. LD 780, as you've noted, is a DEP bill titled An Act Regarding Uncontrolled Hazardous Substance Sites. The bill makes the following changes to the state's Uncontrolled Hazardous Substance Sites law. It amends the definition of hazardous substance in the laws governing uncontrolled hazardous substance sites by including substances defined as hazardous substances or pollutants or contaminants under the federal CERCLA law. It provides a limited exemption from liability for publicly owned treatment works based on the contribution by the publicly owned treatment works of effluent or sewage sludge to an uncontrolled site. It provides a limited exemption for public water systems based on the contribution by the public water system of water treatment residuals to an uncontrolled site. And it also requires that on or before January 15th, 2023, the DEP report to this committee regarding the uncontrolled hazardous substance sites where the department has used its authority to require responsible parties to investigate or remove hazardous substances that are pollutants or contaminants, and for each site, identifying information identifying the substance involved. I provided some background here on CERCLA. Under that law, the terms hazardous substance and pollutant or contaminant are specifically defined, and I've included those full definitions at the end of this analysis. The state's Uncontrolled Hazardous Substance Sites law, however, defines hazardous substance to include any substance designated pursuant to CERCLA. I've also provided the definition for hazardous substance under the state law at the end of the analysis. The designation of a hazardous substance or a pollutant or contaminant under CERCLA triggers a number of potential requirements, responsibilities, and potential liability to responsible parties for cleanup costs. A substance may meet the definition of hazardous substance or pollutant or contaminant under CERCLA, however, without being formally designated. Accordingly, under current state law, those substances that have not been formally designated under CERCLA are not considered hazardous substances, even if they meet the federal definition for hazardous substance or pollutant or contaminant. DEP has the authority under state law to respond to hazardous substances that may endanger the public health or the environment through investigation, mitigation of risk, and remediation of contamination, some of which may be conducted by or the cost of which may be passed on to responsible parties. Some background here on LD 1923 from last year. As referenced at the hearing, this bill is essentially the majority report to LD 1923, which was considered by ENR during the 2020 legislative session, but not enacted prior to the final adjournment of the 129th legislature. There was a minority report to LD 1923, which amended the definition of hazardous substance under state law to specifically include PFAS and meth lab residuals. It also provided DEP with the authority to take action with respect to uncontrolled sites contaminated with substances that meet the federal definition of pollutant or contaminant, regardless of whether those substances are designated under CERCLA, and to expend state resources in addressing such contamination. However, the amendment did not authorize DEP to impose liability for those sites on private parties. I've listed the individuals that testified in favor of, against, and either for or against the bill here. I've noted here that the Maine Municipal Association expressed concerns regarding municipal liability or responsibility for contaminated properties that might be acquired by a municipality. It appeared, although it wasn't explicit to me in the testimony from MMA, that they may be suggesting a municipal exemption from liability under the uncontrolled sites law as a way to address those concerns. The Maine Rural Water Association recommended that the committee clarify the so-called best management practices for disposal or use of effluent or sewage sludge. That's used on page 1, lines 34 to 35 of the bill, or water treatment residuals, that's on page 2, lines 4 to 5, and to clarify that those best practices are applicable at the time of the action and not any future standards that could be applied retroactively. There's no fiscal information available yet, but I've noted here the fiscal note that accompanied that majority report to 1923 identified potential future biennium other special revenue funds cost and revenue increases and included the following description: the addition of new definitions to the hazardous substance term under the state's uncontrolled sites law may expand the scope of investigation and remediation that the DEP conducts. DEP may elect to designate additional sites as uncontrolled sites in future years, which may result in additional expenditures made from and revenues credited to the uncontrolled sites fund. No estimate of these expenditures and revenues is made at this time. I can answer any questions about that or the bill.
Representative Tucker.
I would like to make a motion ought to pass on LD 780.
Is there a second? Did you want to speak to your motion?
May I please?
Yeah.
Has it been seconded? Okay.
Yes, by Representative Gramlich.
This bill will allow us to use the authority given to the state of Maine under the uncontrolled hazardous substance site law. It will give the state the authority to exercise authority to clean up PFAS and other chemicals which are currently not defined as hazardous under state law. Current state law has a list, A through H or something like that, that lists what are considered hazardous substances under Maine's Superfund law. It includes substances such as motor oil and other designations. And this would allow the DEP to designate as hazardous such chemicals as included in the PFAS family and other hazardous and other substances listed by the EPA as pollutants on their list. We had some discussion in this bill in prior legislatures concerning exemptions and decided that the wastewater treatment plants and the water districts should be given an exemption, even though liability would be very slight. One of the powers under the Uncontrolled Hazardous Substances Act is that the DEP, once they have remediated and cleaned up these hazardous substances, they're allowed to take the costs expended in the cleanup, the state costs incurred, and recoup that money from other responsible parties. Since the responsibility of the water districts and the wastewater treatment plants is very low, a limited exemption was given from the liability for cleanup costs. We're just talking about cleanup costs here. Still, the exemptions are qualified under certain criteria, so that if the water district or the wastewater treatment plant acts irresponsibly or is in fact responsible for causing damage, then the DEP could come after them for some costs. It's very unlikely, but theoretically possible. A lot of thought went into that, and it was negotiated at the very highest levels between the water treatment people and the DEP. Thank you.
Are there any additional comments? Yes, Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one question that I had asked at the public hearing on this, I don't think was handled in the excellent analyst memo, and that had to do with the precedent for the commissioner being given the authority that she or he would be given under this bill with relation to determining who has failed to follow best management practices, has failed to comply with this or that. And I wonder if that inquiry just got lost somewhere, or whether there was an answer to that.
I could jump in on that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I might have understood the question differently, and it also, in my mind, I thought was posed to DEP, but my understanding of your question that I could answer at least was with respect to the provisions for liability under the Uncontrolled Sites Law. And in that instance, as I read the law and as I understand it, it's not the DEP commissioner that's determining liability. Any entity that meets the definition under the law and can be identified as a responsible party is jointly and severally liable for reimbursement of those damages or costs that are taken on by the state. And so under joint and several liability, each responsible party can be responsible for the entirety of the cost. So it's not so much the commissioner is determining liability, it's that the law determines liability, and then the commissioner is authorized to seek reimbursement from any one of those responsible parties. And the way it usually works, at least under the Superfund law, is that a lot of lawyers get paid a lot of money to fight out who pays what for 10 to 15 years.
So I don't blame you, Dan, at all for because I think you did capture part of my questions, and they were conflated between those two elements. But the specific thing was the commissioner's given under the bill as it's written considerable authority to whether a particular entity could be exempt from the limited liability prevention provisions here. So that's what I was focused on more is there a precedent for giving a commissioner this kind of quasi-judicial authority in Maine law? That was my question, and I probably did not phrase it well.
Yeah, I definitely misunderstood that, and I wouldn't be prepared to comment on other areas of law right now. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Thanks.
Representative Tucker?
I've just been looking over the criteria, and it looks to me like the criteria for including these entities, publicly owned treatment works, are kind of irreducible. And I don't see that there could be anything that would be more specific, but more importantly, any of these determinations, should they happen, and it's very unlikely that they would, but if there should be a disagreement, it would be appealable to court, and you would have a court hearing. And that would be an independent, different branch of government would sort that out. Thank you.
Senator Bennett?
Thank you. Well, I'll give you an example of something which I don't think is irreducible. It has failed to follow best management practices. I don't know what best management practices are, but that seems rather subjective, or could be subjective. And but that really isn't my question. My question was one of precedence and whether we're establishing a precedence here or not. And I would really like to know the answer to that question before voting on this provision. It would be very beneficial to see if we give cabinet officers, even in other departments, the kind of discretion that this involves, that this bill would, as it's written currently, would involve. Thanks.
Representative Hanley? You're muted, Representative.
There, that's better. I've discovered you can't have two screens up. If you do, you can't talk. So
You lose your cursor.
yeah, I'm on a learning curve here. Has there been any consideration given to the amendments that have been suggested by the other parties? That question would be for you, Representative Tucker. Have you given any consideration to the amendments that were suggested?
Yes, but they were discounted. The opponents basically do not like to have the DEP have any extra discretion that the opponents of the legislation may not want them to have. This is oftentimes a situation where the question is whether you trust government regulation or you don't. And some people instinctively oppose government regulation. Others would put their trust in government action. And I think that spirit runs through this debate.
I want to take 1 minute to pause in our discussion and allow Representative O'Connor to introduce herself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Representative Beth O'Connor. I represent the individuals of House District 5, which is Berwick and part of North Berwick. I apologize for my tardiness this morning. My computer was frozen. Thank you.
We're glad you can join us.
Yeah.
And then I want to make sure that we have a chance to bring in David Burns from the DEP, who I think can maybe address Senator Bennett's question.
While he's coming in, may I make a comment?
Of course.
Thank you. I frankly find Representative Tucker's comment there unfortunate, because I'm actually supportive of this legislation, and it's not, the question for me isn't regulation. The question is who has the power to regulate and whether we're doing it sensibly and on what basis. So to simplify legitimate concerns into some preconceived ideological box, I think is really unfortunate.
Mr. Burns, are you with us? Do you have a moment to perhaps address Senator Bennett's concerns?
I am here. I'm trying to bring my video in right now. So,
welcome.
Yes. Well, good morning to you, Senator Brenner, Representative Tucker, members of the committee. I want to start off by saying I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sure that I'm going to address it in the legal way that others could in this room, but I can talk about precedent and what we do with remediation programs in the agency. So this would not be unusual in terms of remediation programs. It's a process that we've used for many years, whether it's in the oil program, Superfund, or uncontrolled sites programs. The commissioner has certain discretionary powers, but those powers are subject to a series of checks and balances. So if we look at uncontrolled sites, the first thing that has to happen is a site is designated. Once the site is designated, the commissioner can then order a cleanup action. That cleanup action is appealable to the Board of Environmental Protection and to the court system. It can go to either one. So there is that check on the process to make sure that due process is served. And I think if you look at past historical use of the process, it does bear it out okay. We have a little under 2,700 uncontrolled sites in our system. The number of designations, at least last count that I had, was around 38. There are a number of unilateral orders that have been issued, and that number, I believe, is 6. So out of that total population of uncontrolled sites, it shows that the process does, in my opinion, work and is not an abused process. If you look at the unilateral orders issued, that's less than or around 0.2% of the total sites that are in our process. So it would be a normal thing for us to utilize this kind of approach.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Yes, Senator Bennett.
Thank you. Operating on a small screen today, it's hard for me to see, so apologies. If I could just ask Mr. Burns, is the specific concern was, I use the example of best management practices, and then I also talked about the question of the commissioners in this bill being able to decide exemption from limited liability. Is that done anywhere else in your understanding? Anywhere else in law?
Best management practices to me would include following the license criteria that are out there for various application rates, setbacks. That could all be part of best management practices. So from that perspective, yes.
So is it clear, is there a common understanding for what best management practices are that we shared between the DEP and, say, the water folks? Or would that be a possible area of dispute?
I suppose it could be a possible area of dispute, but we do have published best management practices on our website for various things, whether it's erosion control, stormwater control, that sort of thing that could impact a site. So they are published documents.
In water in particular, that area is covered?
I'm less familiar, since that's not a side that I deal with routinely, just to be able to speak to you off the cuff about that. But okay. Yes, I would imagine there are several BMPs on the water side as well. Okay,
and then just finally, the exemption issue, are you aware of any precedent there? where the commissioner can exempt from liability in other areas of the law?
I view it a little bit differently, so maybe not that exact wording, but a lot of times our cleanup and remediation programs are done to the commissioner's satisfaction. And that to me is what gives the flexibility and similarity to the liability language that's in here. So that routinely happens.
Representative Tucker.
I would like to respond to Senator Bennett's correct observation that I kind of was carried away and painting with a broad brush. I think it's simply a reflection of how much I care about this bill. And also, there are lots of ambiguous terms that litter all statutory programs, and government officials are always confronted with ambiguities that have to be sorted out. These particular exemptions were negotiated between the former commissioner of DEP, who was a longstanding head of the environmental law section of the Attorney General's office, Mr. Reed. And these were negotiated with the parties who were concerned, with the Wastewater Treatment Association folks, with the people who run the publicly owned treatment works. And the language was sufficient so that those folks felt comfortable with those. Also, if you attend various seminars that they have by the publicly owned treatment people, it's an amazing the depth of the detail that is involved in regulating the wastewater treatment plants. And there are, in fact, best management practices which are taught and studied and listed and so forth within that specialty. So once you get into that specialty, what looks like a vague term for us as just man on the street approach, once you get deep into the specialty, I think things like best management practices become rather obvious. So just as an apology and also a comment. Thank you.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you. I appreciate this, the passion and the spirit and the apology. I am wanting to support this bill, and I just really trying to squirrel down into the little corners of the issues that are presented, and not. And it's new to me. I wasn't part of the debate last year, and frankly, haven't talked with any of the interested parties about it. Rather, just sort of interested in getting this resolved for my own purposes and doing my job as a steward of the people. And I really hate to do this because I know that we're trying to move legislation, but I really would like to get a little bit more comfort level on this question of precedent. With just to understand, and the best management thing too. I'd like to look on the DEP's website, et cetera. So I don't mean to slow things down at all. I would just trying to get good answers to questions I have.
So at this point, we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Representative Hanley.
Yes, I'd like to ask Pat Starrich to come in if he can from the Maine Forest Products Council.
Do you have a question for Mr. Strzok?
Yes, I want to ask him about the amendment that was proposed.
Okay, let's bring Mr. Strzok in for that question.
I believe he's an attendee.
He's coming through the wormhole.
Am I there?
You're here. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion that's going on, and I do think I did want to flag this as a precedent that is being set. The amendment recognizes that if you want to create a parallel structure with CERCLA, CERCLA does not allow pollutants or contaminants the same level of liability because they haven't gone through a subject of thoughtful rulemaking. And that's, so the amendment that I've talked about parallels the CERCLA law. And it says it keeps separate. You can bring in the pollutant and contaminant definition, and those powers for the pollutant and contaminant definition allow you to deal with hazardous substances. You can take care of uncontrolled site issues, but you can't, just like in the federal law, assign liability. And this is a liability for life on products that we haven't really gone through rulemaking to determine what risks are at stake. And so I think it's important that if we're talking about a parallel structure, and the federal law has reasons for keeping these two pollutants and contaminants separate from hazardous substances, there's reason for that, and the feds can spend their own money on those kinds of issues. And I think the main Attorney General who instigated this concern would be able to answer if by limiting pollutant and contaminants in the law to site authority to the DEP, that the concerns of the AG's office would be settled.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to take my chair's liberty and tell you where I'm at with this bill. I'm in support of this bill as is, and I want to remind everyone that this is an important vehicle for us to be able to move things from what we know are pollutants into the hazardous categories so that we have the power as a state to manage these spaces. The federal government isn't coming anytime soon to save us from this mess. And so we need to have state-based innovative solutions and capacity to manage it on our own. And this is a vehicle to do that. And I'll remind Senator Bennett that as a Senate, we have the capacity to confirm or deny the appointment of the commissioner of the DEP. So we do have some checks and balances in place. So I'm in support of this bill and I'm ready to vote. Any other comments? Yes, Representative Dudera.
Thank you, Senator Brenner. That's a great reminder of, you know, we have an organization who is working hard to protect the resources here in Maine that, you know, we know are critical, not only to our health, but to our brand, to our enjoyment of the state, to attracting new people, to attracting businesses, and identifying, you know, and moving things that are harmful into the harmful category is, you know, one of their more important functions. So thank you. I'm ready to vote as well.
All right. Everybody ready for the question? Yes, Senator Bennett.
Sorry, I'm finding my buttons. So under the bill as it's written, just to be, so I'm absolutely clear, the commissioner of DEP can take one of these circular items, a pollutant or another substance that hasn't yet been determined as hazardous, and move that substance into our definition of hazardous substance without on their own discretion, or is there rulemaking in between that would govern how such a substance would move into that category?
Dan, did you want to answer that?
Sure. I don't think there's any discretion provided for in the bill. It simply says that if a substance meets the definition under CERCLA for hazardous substance or pollutant or contaminant, and I provided those definitions at the end of my analysis, it is automatically defined as a hazardous substance under the state's uncontrolled hazardous substances sites law. And that means that the department would have the authority to take actions that it can take for any other hazardous substance under the law.
Representative Hanley.
This is just popped into my head. If the commissioner can add a substance, could a commissioner also remove a substance with this new type of authority?
I suppose I could answer that again. It's a definition of the term hazardous substance. So they're not being added or removed to that definition. The definition is what it is. The question is whether or not the state through the DEP will take action with respect to any particular contaminated site that contains one of those substances that is under the state law a hazardous substance.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay, Sabrina, I believe we're ready.
Okay, LD 780, the motion is ought to pass. Senator Brenner.
Yes.
Representative Tucker.
Yes.
Senator Bennett.
I pass.
Representative Hanley.
No.
Senator Carney. Absent. Representative Bell.
I vote yes.
Representative Bloom.
Yes.
Representative Dudera.
Yes.
Representative Gramlich.
Yes.
Representative Johansson.
No.
Representative O'Connor.
No.
Representative Toole. Absent. Representative Ziegler. Absent. Six yes, 3 no, and 3 absent. What is the minority report for the noes?
I'm sorry, can I get clarification? Senator Bennett, I'm not familiar with a pass. I suppose you could be recorded as absent so you could record your vote later. I'm not sure how the joint rules address that.
Nor am I. I'm just not ready to vote.
If you were to turn off your video right now, we could consider you absent.
I will do that.
I think he left.
That's
Yes,
okay.
Representative Tucker.
Now, the clerk can ask for absentees.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I lost connection. Did you vote?
Yes, LD 780, the motion is ought to pass.
Can I register my vote now?
Yes.
Yes, ought to pass.
Senator, if you see hands, I'm not, now that I'm seeing the slides, I'm not seeing
7
hands.
yes, 3 no's, and 4 absent. The 4 no's ought not to pass. Or the no.
Yes, ought not to
Yes,
pass.
okay.
I think it's only 3 absent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was 3 no's, 7 yeses, 3 absent, correct? Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, Dan.
Just as long as we're still talking about this, we've just had the vote. I'm assuming there will be a very minor fiscal note, as I described in the analysis, because this is the same bill as last time. Can I assume that those on the majority report are okay with this becoming ought to pass as amended, just to incorporate that fiscal note, and that you will not want to reconsider it to do so?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Everybody ready for the next one? Just shake it off. Okay, here we go. Next bill is 802. An act to ensure decommissioning of solar energy developments.
So I just sent you the analysis for that one. This is another DEP bill. It requires a person to obtain approval of a decommissioning plan from the DEP or from the Maine Land Use Planning Commission. In the case of a solar energy development located in the unorganized and deorganized areas, before constructing or operating a solar energy development with ground-mounted solar panels occupying 3 or more acres. I've listed for you the entities testifying in favor of, against, and neither for nor against the bill. There were a number of amendments proposed by the Maine Renewable Energy Association, and I've listed them here. The first is to include language to address municipal decommissioning requirements that could potentially conflict with state requirements. It wasn't explicit to me in reading the testimony, but it could be suggesting a preemption provision in the law. There was a suggestion to amend the decommissioning requirement to address support structures drilled into bedrock by allowing those structures to be cut off at bedrock level rather than removed to a depth of 24 inches or 48 inches if it was on farmland. The Associated General Contractors of Maine submitted testimony this morning that echoed some similar concerns about that removal requirement. There was a suggestion to amend the grading and revegetation requirement to allow a landowner to elect to maintain certain aspects of the development, such as access roads. The Renewable Energy Association suggested language such as unless otherwise required by the landowner and approved by the permitting authority. The Associated General Contractors of Maine also echoed some similar concerns regarding that requirement in the bill. There was a recommendation to ensure equity and financial assurance by making the state and the municipality co-payees of the financial insurance. And there was a suggestion to consider increasing the length of time in which the decommissioning plan has to be updated. I wasn't sure if this suggestion was based on a slight misreading of the requirement for the update in the bill, which to me only appears to require the financial assurance itself to be updated every 5 years, not the entire plan. The plan would have to be submitted once, but I might be wrong about that. The Nature Conservancy proposed adding the term fences to the list of components that are subject to decommissioning under the bill's definition of the term decommissioning. The Associated General Contractors of Maine had some questions about whether the requirement under decommissioning to grade the earth disturbed by the project during decommissioning requires a grading to the original grade of the earth or a post-construction grade. There was also discussion at the hearing regarding the 3-acre solar project threshold for decommissioning. As DEP noted, decommissioning can already be required under the site law for solar projects greater than 20 acres. The 3-acre threshold for this proposed decommissioning statute was, according to DEP, designed to focus on smaller commercial solar projects not subject to the site law without inadvertently capturing smaller solar projects that are not designed for commercial use. The example that was given was a commercial farm with a sizable solar array that's designed solely to provide energy for that farm. They didn't want to capture something like that. And finally, a note here that it's from me, enforcement or rulemaking authority in violations. Because this new decommissioning statute is enacted in Title 35A, the general enforcement and other regulatory authorities set out for DEP in Title 38, which we're all familiar with, and to a similar extent for the LUPC in Title 12, are not automatically applicable. The committee may want to consider whether it is necessary to include an explicit authorization of enforcement and or rulemaking authority for DEP and LUPC under this proposal. And along the same lines, it may be worth considering whether penalties for a violation of these provisions should be clearly stipulated. We don't have any fiscal information at this time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Representative Tucker. You're muted, Representative. Sorry, you'll have to say it all over again.
Unlike the prior discussions we've had today, this bill has not been kicking around the committee for a couple of years. This is brand new. These various suggestions and amendments seem to me to have a lot of merit. I know that Representative Handley has some constructive ideas. I would suggest that maybe this isn't ready for a vote today, but that we should use our time to bring in Mr. Livesay, who drafted this thing, and go over the bill with him. And I think many of us have questions, and he could address many of these proposed amendments. That's my suggestion.
I agree. That would be great. Let's bring Mr. Livesay over. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
You want to walk us through some of these amendments?
Sure, Senator Brenner and Representative Tucker, committee members. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this. In a sort of a general statement, I think that the comments that we've received from both the Renewable Energy Group, I haven't seen the Association of General Contractors, but we just heard a summary from Mr. Tartikoff. And then I think the Nature Conservancy had a comment. And to generalize, I think that the comments sort of reflect everyone more or less being on the same page here and just trying to hammer out some of the particular details. And with respect to most of these suggestions, I think there's ways to either incorporate them, or in a number of instances, I think that the questions or concerns that have been raised are legitimate, but they're also already addressed in the existing language. For instance, the ability for a farm owner to retain a road for agricultural purposes that might be put in to construct and operate a solar farm is provided for in the definition of decommissioning that allows for retaining sort of components of the project that are put to use after the life of the solar project. Just for example, other concerns or thoughts that have been raised relate to does somebody need to provide an update to their financial assurance in year 5, say in 10, or is it really something that we need prior to construction and then not need to really revisit until we get to say year 15, much closer to the end of the life of the project? I think that has some good merit. And there are other pieces in there, and I'm happy to take them up if Dan wants to prompt me, or if any of the committee members do.
Do committee members have questions about specific amendments that were proposed by different parties?
So absent any, I'm happy to look closely at the ones that have been proposed. I think I see that Representative Hanley has his hand up, but I'm happy to look at those that have been proposed and put together updated language so that the committee has something to look at concretely and react to. And then if you have particular questions about those at a subsequent work session, I can answer them, or I could walk you through why something is in and not in.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you. I think these are all good suggestions. But I do agree with Representative Tucker. We need to take some more time to iron out all of it. I think we all support this. My concern was that 3 acre may be too large, but if we can carefully keep that in and not entangle it, like you said, a farm operation that is solely, the solar project is for their own use. But I don't want to allow someone to call their 2,000 acre orchard a farm and get away with things, you know what I mean? So I don't mind keeping the 3 acre limit as long as it is directed only at farms, at a private, a family farm operation. But I think all the other components need to be talked about. And I agree with Representative Tucker, we need a little more time.
Any additional comments? So it sounds like in the meantime, before we bring this back for an additional conversation around the horseshoe, what would be helpful is a review from Mr. Livesey about some of these amendments, their merits, and perhaps an amended, like a draft that we could all look at for that next work session.
I'd be happy to put together a draft amendment language. I think it'll make it clearer to the committee what we're talking about and easier for me to summarize things.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it seems like this is the first attempt at this. And then over the years, as we learn more about what it means to decommission these sites, we'll probably be in here reconsidering over the years as more comes to light about what we need to do in order to take care of these, closing down these spaces when their usable life is up. Yes, Representative Hanley.
I move we table pending feedback from the department on a clear package for this bill.
Second.
All right, everybody in favor of the table? Show of hands. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 809. 809 is an act to prohibit the purging of volatile organic compounds from, I'm sorry, my language got cut off for the rest of the title of the bill. This is Senator Miramont's bill about purging of volatile organic compounds from ocean vessels in Maine waters.
Yes, so this is, the full title is to prohibit the purging of volatile organic compound gases from oil tankers in the waters of Maine. And this is Senator Miramont's bill. And the summary is it prohibits the purging of volatile organic compound gases from cargo holds or tanks into or upon state waters. There was not a lot of testimony received on this proposal. It was noted during the hearing that a number of other states, Alaska, California, New Jersey, Oregon, Texas, and Washington were noted, have adopted laws or regulations that address the activity described in the bill. There was also discussion at the hearing regarding whether there was a need for state regulation to address the activity described in the bill. Outside the waters of the state, federal and international regulations would apparently apply to the activity. DEP suggested it is unlikely this activity is happening at a great frequency in Maine waters or ports, as the loading losses and vessel ballasting losses of these gases are most commonly associated with the loading of petroleum onto vessels, which is not a practice that's occurring in Maine ports. DEP did note that emissions of these gases from marine vessels can also occur during the cleaning and degassing of vessels and storage tanks, which is an issue they're currently planning to address via a rulemaking. And I've included a technical note here, how the language could be improved in 2 different ways to make more clear the activity that is being prohibited and the area that is being prohibited in, if the committee wants to proceed with the proposal. If we don't have any fiscal information, I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any discussion about this bill? I think we were. Does anyone want to open our conversation? Yes, Representative Dudera.
Sorry, I wasn't finding my raise hand thingy there for a minute. Thank you, Senator Brenner. You know, for me, listening to this and caring so much about Penobscot Bay, which is right out here, but I know that, you know, all of us who are on this Zoom call today care about the ocean and care about the bodies of water that are near us here in Maine. So, you know, listening to it, it is alarming to think that, you know, something could be going on that we don't know about that's endangering the health of our waters. You know, we recently had the Sprague spill, which scared a lot of us. We have other issues and things we're finding out about. And, you know, the health of our ocean is of paramount importance to all of us. But I do think that when I listen to the testimony on this, you know, it does feel to me that there are regulations in place. There are rules in place to take care of this. I think it was great that it was brought to our attention so it can be on all of our radar. But I think that I feel confident that we've already got regulations that will, you know, control and keep this kind of behavior in check. So that's where I'm coming down on. So I'm not looking to support this.
Any other committee members? Yes, Representative O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would have to say that it is concerning, however, listening to Representative Dodera, I would agree with her 100%, and I would make a motion ought not to pass.
Do we have a second? Representative Tucker. Any more discussion? All right. I think we're ready for the vote. Yes, Representative Tucker.
This will teach Representative Ziegler that he should pick which committee he thinks is more important. There he is.
Excuse me. I'm listening to everything with the phone to my ear. I can multitask, Representative Tucker. And I agree with Representative Dodera.
You caught me.
I did.
Okay. Question on the floor, ready for a vote. Ought not to pass is the motion.
Senator Brenner.
Yes.
Representative Tucker.
Yes.
Senator Bennett.
Yes.
Representative Hanley.
Yes.
Senator Carney. Absent. Representative Bell.
Yes.
Representative Bloom.
Yes.
Representative Dudera.
Yes.
Representative Gramlich.
Yes.
Representative Johansson.
Yes.
Representative O'Connor.
Yes.
Representative Toole. Absent. Representative Ziegler.
And I like being unanimous, and I also like the fact that I am listening to everything that goes on there. Yes.
11 yes, 2 absent.
Right, off we go. Next one up is LD 872, an act concerning motor vehicle emissions control system tampering. This is a bill by our own Representative Ziegler.
So I sent you an email that has more than just the analysis in it. You should have just gotten that. So there is my analysis, which I'll go through in a second. There's a proposed amendment from DEP, and then there are a couple of additional documents from DEP that are responses to requests made at the hearing. So LD 872 is an act concerning motor vehicle emissions control system tampering. It's a DEP bill. It prohibits a person from tampering with the emission control system of a motor vehicle, and also prohibits a dealer from selling, leasing, renting, or transferring the title or right of possession of a motor vehicle if a person has tampered with the emission control system. There was the list of persons that testified here I provided for you. Some additional background on the Federal Clean Air Act. As noted by multiple speakers, the Federal Clean Air Act already prohibits motor vehicle emission system tampering in some ways, and I've provided those provisions for you that I understand accomplish that. Per the DEP, although it currently has the authority to address emission tampering on new motor vehicles under its Rule Chapter 127, it lacks the authority to address such tampering in used vehicles. So I've noted here in the analysis that there is a DEP amendment that was also attached to that email that you got, which strikes and replaces the original bill. I don't know to what degree DEP reached out to any of those in opposition to the bill or incorporated the changes, because I only got it last night. So I will just go ahead and go through the concerns and other proposed amendments addressed here. The Maine Automobile Dealers Association, I've noted their testimony here because they did not submit written testimony, and they had a lot to say. So there was some concern that the new section 585-0-2A limits the prohibition on tampering to tampering for compensation only, but then prohibits the sale of a tampered vehicle by a dealer. There was general opposition to 585-0-2B because it applied to dealers only and not to individuals or to vehicle repair facilities, and because it's not commercially reasonable for a dealer to determine whether tampering has occurred, and in many circumstances not logistically possible. The issue with auto auctions or weekend auto sales was discussed. There was a note from the Automobile Dealers Association that the definition of tampering and the prohibition on the sale of a tampered vehicle may prevent the sale of a vehicle on which the original manufacturer installed emission control system was repaired or replaced in order to ensure the correct functioning of the system and not to defeat or bypass the system. They later proposed an amendment to the bill that I believe would exclude from the definition of dealer under the bill franchise new car dealers. There was an entity called Copart that proposes to exclude wholesale auto dealers and vehicle auctions from the definition of dealer under the bill, and to exclude salvage vehicles and vehicles sold for parts or scrap from the definition of motor vehicle under the bill. A group called Insurance Auto Auctions proposed to add a definition for insurance salvage pool, cross-referencing a definition in Title 29A, and then to exempt insurance salvage pools from the provisions of the new law. There was a number of information requests from committee members to the DEP related to the subject matter of the bill that were proposed at the hearing, and that information has been provided in documents distributed separately from the analysis. I'm probably not in the best position to go through the amendment from the DEP since I just received it last night and I'm not 100% sure of all the goals of the amendment. I believe you heard from Jeff Crawford at DEP at the hearing, and I'm sorry, that's my dog scratching himself. he is here and available, and I can answer any questions.
Oh, that was great. Okay. Shall we bring, I'm so sorry.
That's got to be a first.
That is so funny.
I don't think I've ever mentioned this to Representative Tucker, but my dog's name is Tucker.
Oh, that's great.
But he's 11, so he was named long ago.
Well, that's about when Representative Tucker started his meteoric political career.
Okay, let's bring over Mr. Crawford so we have him available for questions. I'm just going to wipe my laughing tears away and then.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Crawford. How are you?
I'm sorry. I'm still laughing at Tucker, the dog, mind you. Hard act to follow. Yes, the department has prepared a proposed amendment, which I believe will address most of the concerns that we heard during the public hearing. In a nutshell, we are proposing to replace the original bill with a new bill that removes the prohibition on tampering for compensation only. It would extend the prohibition of sale of a tampered vehicle to any person. However, we have been in contact with Mr. Garrity, who was representing Maine Auto Dealers, and I believe Mr. Garrity does have a suggested amendment that would carve out, if you will, the franchise dealers. And I think it's important to note that it was really never our intent to address that type of a dealership. Frankly, what the goal of this bill is to provide us the authority to respond to complaints when it comes to our attention. We don't have a large staff for compliance and enforcement. And as it is, we're already actually able to visit OEM franchise dealers because they are subject to our Chapter 127 new motor vehicle emission standards rule. So it's essentially so we can help EPA. Again, as we mentioned, there are prohibitions at the federal level. However, we don't have the ability to address this through the department at the state level, and EPA's resources, like everybody else's, are in fact limited. Getting back to our proposal here, we have deleted the auto auctions. I believe we have deleted the change the disconnect as far as returning a vehicle's emission system back to the original manufacturer certification. And I believe we've also appropriately addressed the Copart concerns and salvage concerns. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Crawford? Yes, Representative Tucker.
Mr. Crawford, is the genesis of this bill a suggestion issued from the EPA at the federal level, trying to get the states in line to help them with the used cars, since their law does not cover used cars?
Well, actually, it is at the recommendation of US EPA. A couple of years ago, a number of our staff participated in some anti-tampering training with the EPA, and following that training, US EPA did in fact visit a couple facilities in southern Maine. They were accompanied by the state police at that point in time. And again, unfortunately, even though these had come to our attention, the department simply lacks the authority to address it. I mean, we can't even issue a letter of warning to a facility that may be tampering with vehicles.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you. I see under the proposed amendment, individuals, in other words, backyard mechanics, would be included in this. And that would include even the sale of a private vehicle to another citizen. Is that your intent?
That was the intent, and the intent was in fact to incorporate the concerns we heard at the public hearing. As you very correctly note, the department's original bill did not include that prohibition.
Did you have a follow-up comment?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think under the original bill, you were directing it only at licensed dealers, used a new dealer.
It was directed at either persons being compensated for their work, I guess for lack of a better word, a chop shop or a tuning facility, you know, or small dealers who were selling tampered vehicles.
But now the proposed amendment would sweep into it every citizen.
The proposed amendment would extend that prohibition to everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Yes, Representative Tucker. You're muted, Representative.
In the new amendment, which I assume will take some time to circulate, so we'll probably have to come back again. It references penalties under section 349. I have no idea where that, what that is, but what kind of penalties are we talking about?
Section 349 is the general department's enforcement penalty section. I'd have to refresh my memory. I believe they can be quite significant. In reality, I think we need to look no further than a lot of our smaller enforcement actions with, you know, the Bureau of Land Quality or Bureau of Air Quality. You know, we generally would not issue a penalty for less than $500, but it could be anywhere from $500 to, I believe, $10,000 per day under section 349. That would be a rarity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So if a high school kid has a vehicle that's already been modified, he's not aware of it, he sells it, and someone complains about it, where does the chain of guilt go? How do you track down these criminals?
As a, you know, the original bill we submitted, I think, as you very astutely noticed, wouldn't address individuals, and really the high school kid, you know, the guy down the street is certainly not the person we're interested in addressing. We're interested in addressing facilities doing this work for profit. We're interested in addressing the facilities that are selling these tampered vehicles. There was a recent case, I'm not sure whether we've forwarded it to you, down in southern Maine in Windham, where EPA, I previously mentioned it, went after a facility that was selling tampered trucks, and it's an ongoing enforcement case. We believe that it is a fairly widespread activity in other places of the state. So no, we don't want to go after the high school kid.
Thank you. May I have a follow-up?
Absolutely.
Well, I understand that, except that once you put something into law, it becomes the law. And
Sure.
You know, you and I'm not a personal issue here, but the agency that exists today may not intend that, but other groups, other men and women that might follow you 6 years from now would not have the same mindset. And so I worry about us, I mean, it almost appears to me that we're using a sledgehammer to kill an ant. You know, we're going over the limit, over what we need to do. So I'm kind of uncomfortable with this bill as it's written.
I think the department is more than amenable to narrowing the scope of this proposal if we can, you know, come to some agreeable language with everybody.
So our pal Bruce Garrity is over in the attendee space. I'd like to bring him in and just see what he has to say from the dealer's perspective regarding the amendments. Good morning, Mr. Garrity, and welcome.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for recognizing me. I appreciate it. And thank you, Representative Tucker, as well. I did want to make a couple of comments. We had conferred with Mr. Crawford and suggested an amendment, which I don't think I don't want to speak for the department. My sense was the department didn't have a problem with, that would exclude new car dealers, because quite frankly, we're well outside the chain of the kinds of issues that the department and the legislation is trying to address. And I sent the language along. I think that Mr. Tartikoff has it, that would exempt franchisees under the Automobile Dealer Manufacturer Franchise Act. That's a very limited definition that applies only to businesses that are franchised new car dealers. That was one suggestion that we would propose, because we clearly are outside the scope of what is intended to be addressed. The second point I would make, Senator, is that I just saw this a little while ago. Mr. Crawford was kind enough to send it to me, and I've sent it off to my clients. But one of the concerns I noted is that we had suggested exempting salvage pools because they are a different kind of beast. They are regulated by the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they do end up parting out vehicles, tearing up vehicles, the same as with scrap recyclers. And again, these aren't the people, it seems to me, that the legislation is aimed at getting at. So we'd respectfully urge the committee to both adopt the franchisee language and to continue to or exclude salvage pools, as we had suggested in our original legislation. I will say that I've sent this off to several other clients. You might recall I testified for about 4 different clients on this bill, and I've not heard back from them. We do appreciate the efforts the department has made to address a number of these concerns, but we think these points certainly merit the committee's consideration and acceptance. And I really appreciate your letting me speak. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Garrity. Did anyone have any direct questions? Well, Mr. Garrity's here. All right. Any other comments about the proposed amendments, the legislation at hand? I'm getting the sense that we're probably not going to be ready for a vote today on this. Are other people feeling that way? Okay. Yes, Representative Hanley.
Yes, I agree, Madam Chair. When a bill is brought forward and then it is completely replaced, it's an indication that it's not ready for, you know, when you have to add a completely new bill behind the title. It needs more thinking and planning. I don't think we're ready to vote on this at all.
Okay. Any other thoughts? All right. Anybody want to make a motion? Yes, Representative O'Connor.
Thank you. I would move to table this bill.
Okay. Is there a second? Great. Let's take a vote with a show of hands. All right. To go. Thank you, everyone. And next up, all right, let me get back to my Find my sheet here. Okay, next up is 960, which is an act to require reporting of PFAS in products and of discharges of firefighting foam containing PFAS. Yes, Representative Tucker. Whoops, you're on mute, Representative.
Senator Brenner, are you afraid to read the title of the bill?
Touché.
I
will if you will.
I believe we have another bill along these lines coming. This morning I learned that the presiding officers do not want us to pair bills any further, but we're already here. And we have a bill which may be paired with future bills. So perhaps I could ask if Representative Gramlich could explain a request to postpone this work session. And perhaps Representative Gramlich could let us know whether we want to go through the OPLA analysis now or wait till the joint paired work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tucker. Yes, I do have two bills. They've actually just come out and have, I believe, been referred. They referred last night. They're very similar to the department bill that Representative Fay has submitted in terms of requiring reporting of PFAS in products and in firefighting foam. I have two bills. One would address products that manufacturers produce that has PFAS in them, and it would include a component to phase the products from using PFAS in the future. The second bill is specific to firefighting foam, while again it is very similar to the department's bill that Representative Fay put in terms of reporting the use of PFAS in firefighting foam. My bill would also include phasing PFAS out of firefighting foam moving forward. So I just thought that it would be really helpful for the committee and certainly for the public listening to have the opportunity to have a public hearing on my two bills and then working the three of these bills at the same time.
Any comments? Yes, Representative Tucker. You're muted, Representative.
I move that we table this bill to the next work session.
I second that.
All right, a show of hands. Okay. I have a suggestion that if you have to be told you're muted more than once, then you have to say parafluoral alcohol and polyfluoral alcohol substances as your penalty. All right, moving on.
As long as you can say that while you're muted, that's fine.
All right, so now we are on to, where are we here? I got it. I'm gonna get organized. Okay, so I think next up is 771, which is an act to amend the laws governing wastewater treatment plant operator certification.
Sorry, that's me. I had to find my mute button.
Welcome, Deirdre. Good to see you.
Good seeing you as well. I'm just jumping on from EUT, so I'm a slight bit behind here. So, okay, I'm ready now. This bill modifies the laws governing wastewater treatment plant operator certification programs administered by the Department of Environmental Protection in the following ways. It adds a definition for operator in responsible charge. This existing law uses this language but does not currently define it. It allows a wastewater treatment plant that is required by its classification to employ an operator to employ more than one operator, but requires the plant to designate one of those operators as the operator in responsible charge for the facility. It removes the requirement that the revocation or suspension of a certificate held by an operator or an operator in responsible charge be sought in district court, and instead provides the department with this authority to revoke or suspend a license after written notification and opportunity for a hearing, and that hearing needs to be an adjudicatory proceeding. It allows the department to set an expiration date for certificates. Current law specifies that certificates do not expire unless revoked by the district court. It specifies that a person, firm, or corporation that commits a violation may also be subject to a civil enforcement action and civil monetary penalties. Current law only specifies that a person or entity is guilty of a misdemeanor, and it makes technical changes to this chapter, including updating outdated terminology and removing outdated provisions. At the public hearing, a few people testified, some in support, opposed, and either for or against. There were a couple of amendments. There was one amendment and a suggestion offered in testimony. The first was from Tim Wade from Maine Water Environmental Association. I might have just said that wrong. And that was to amend Section 7 of the bill to allow for a larger and wider variety of approved training to help meet the needs of the wide variety of facilities in the state. So he had provided language that would basically say that the program must provide training in the supervision, management, and operation of sewage collection and wastewater treatment systems. Also, Maine Rural Water Association, Brad Sawyer, suggested instead of passing the bill that the committee urged the department and the Board of Licensure for water operations to work together to combine these two processes, because the board is currently examining and revising their procedures for licensing. I will just make two notes. In Section 18 of the bill, this deals with the violation provisions. It retains the language from existing law that uses the word misdemeanor. This language was adopted prior to the current crime classification system under Title 17A. This should likely be amended to be called a Class E crime, which is consistent with Title 38, Section 349, which is like the DEP's penalty section of law, in which that case only criminal penalties are all generally Class E crimes. So that was one thing, that there was a carryover of old language and statute. And additionally, this is just a small technical thing, but in the definition section of the bill, it retains the definition for commissioner. However, the bill as proposed is replacing commissioner with department in all aspects of it. So commissioner isn't used in this chapter at all, but the definition has been retained in the definition section. And no fiscal impact has been received at this point.
Yes, Representative Tucker.
Thank you very much. I would like to move that we ought to pass LD 771 and that we bring the Bureau head into our discussion. Is there a second?
Representative Gramlich,
you.
I believe this is second. All right, let's go ahead and bring in. Oops, where are we here? Let's bring in our
Mr.
Bureau.
Kavanaugh.
Mr. Kavanaugh. Brian Kavanaugh. Do you see him over there, Sabrina? Okay, great. Welcome, Mr. Kavanaugh. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay.
Representative
Mr.
Tucker.
Kavanaugh, could you
Yes.
address the concerns that were delineated by our OPLA analyst and any others which you may have received independently, and tell us whether you need additional time or not on this bill? Thank you.
Well, I know Ms. Snyder mentioned the potential modifications suggested by MWEA, the Maine Water Environment Association. I've had discussions with MWEA on that issue, and we're fine with their proposal. We have no concerns if that language was changed. She also mentioned, I take it, what is outdated terminology in Section 18 with the term misdemeanor. So I would just go with her advice that to use the most updated terminology there. And I'm not sure what the other concerns were. Was there another issue?
Representative Tucker, did you have another question for Mr. Kavanaugh? You're muted.
I think Deidre was going to answer that question.
Okay.
So the only other thing that I mentioned was that the bill retains the definition for commissioner, but it looks like everywhere where commissioner was currently used within the chapter has been replaced by department. So there's no need for that definition in the definition section. It's technical, it's not the end of the world if it stays, but just thought I would point it out.
Yes, Representative Tucker.
Okay. I think this is a good bill because it allows the department to better regulate the certifications for the wastewater treatment operators. The current system requires that they go to district court every time there's a problem. And I believe that's trying to use a cannon to kill a mouse. I think there might be a lot of situations where some counseling or lesser penalties might be allowed on the administrative level without having to go directly to court on every little disciplinary or regulatory decision. Obviously, there still is the appeal to district court if any party feels they've been treated unfairly. I would like to amend my motion to pass to include the Melita amendment and also the technical changes that were described by Ms. Snyder. Thank you.
Representative Gramlich as a second. Are you comfortable with that? Okay. Is there any more discussion? Representative Tucker?
No, only if Mr. Kavanaugh could please explain in a little more detail for us what the Melita amendment is more precisely.
Okay.
Sure. So they suggested a change in the language. One of the things the department does is oversees the continuing education requirements for a certified operator. Every 2 years, in order to renew the license for the certification, they need to have 18 hours of credit that's approved by the department. And so and generally that's technical training on the operation of a wastewater facility. We've had discussions with the 3 wastewater associations over the years on their desire to broaden that type of training, the type of training that we're willing to approve, to include things that we generally viewed as kind of softer skills that are more in line with the management of the facility and supervision of people rather than the technical operations. So we've had some good discussions with the associations. We've become more flexible over the last couple of years in what we're approving based on their requests. And I think this suggested language change here, the current language describes that training as advanced training in the technical and legal aspects of water pollution control and distribution information. And they're proposing to change it to training in the supervision, management, and operation of sewage collection and wastewater treatment systems. And we're fine with that change. It's more in line with what we're doing now in terms of the type of training we're approving. We've got guidance that we've provided to the profession in terms of what we believe is appropriate. And this definition falls in line with that.
So I would follow up with a question to Ms. Snyder. If if she has got that and whether she can incorporate it into the language for my motion.
Yeah, I have the language that they provided in their testimony, a marked up version of the section. And if Mr. Kavanaugh is fine with how they've marked it up, then I think it's pretty clear.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Does the committee have any additional comments? Are we ready for a vote? Okay, the question is on the floor. Ought to pass as amended.
Senator Brenner,
Yes.
Representative Tucker,
Yes.
Senator Bennett,
Yes.
Representative Hanley,
Yes.
Senator Carney, absent. Representative Bell,
Yes.
Representative Bloom,
Yes.
Representative Dudera,
Yes.
Representative Gramlich,
Yes.
Representative Johansson,
Yes.
Representative O'Connor,
Essentially. Yes.
Representative Toole, absent.
December of 2020 will be
Representative
another.
Ziegler,
Yes.
That was a month of three pretty significant.
11 yes, 2 absent.
Yes, Representative Tucker. You're muted, Representative.
Can we let Mr. Kavanaugh escape?
We certainly can. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Okay, so we have one bill left and then we have some language review, but I'm going to take a 5-minute break and I would encourage all of you to do the same. And then we'll come back 5 minutes after noon and finish up versus taking a lunch break. But that'll end our work together this morning. So 5 minutes. Okay, folks, if you're here, we can go ahead and get started. All right, so our next work session is for LD 940, an act to establish appliance energy and water standards.
I didn't know if you wanted to wait till you actually have a quorum visible, because for purposes of voting, I mean, it's up to you. I can start just talking. I'm sure people will trickle in.
I think we can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
I suspect they're just nibbling on a little snack and off screen, and we'll.
Okay. So this bill provides that beginning January 1st, 2023, a person may not sell or offer for sale in the state any of the following new products that were prohibited from sale in the state of California under its appliance efficiency regulations, as those regulations were in effect on January 1st, 2021. It includes computers and computer monitors, general certain service lamps, commercial hot food holding cabinets, plumbing fittings that are shower heads, lavatory faucets, kitchen faucets, public lavatory faucets, metering faucets, kitchen replacement aerators, and lavatory replacement aerators, plumbing fixtures that were water closets and urinals, portable electric spas, spray sprinkler bodies, and water dispensers. The bill is drafted, requires the governor's energy office to enforce this prohibition, and it also has control over fines for violation of the prohibitions specified. It authorizes the office to enter into a memorandum of understanding or other formalized agreement with the Efficiency Main Trust to enter for the provision of technical assistance by the trust to consumers and businesses regarding the prohibition. The office is also required to submit an annual report to the committee, EUT committee of the legislature, describing any recent or anticipated changes to the California appliance efficiency regulations and including recommendations as to whether, based on such changes or for other specified reasons, the provisions require amendment. However, at the public hearing, there was an amendment offered by the DEP in its testimony and discussed. It also so Representative Pfluger has an amendment. It's attached to this. I sent it out yesterday. So this was offered by the DEP. It also captures the proposed amendment offered in testimony by the Consumer Technology Association, which was opposed to the bill, but suggested if moving forward with the inclusion of computers and computer monitors to include language that would provide the authority to stay consistent and keep pace with California regulation. So the amendment, what it does specifically is it replaces the bill, but it actually maintains the substance of the bill. Specifically, it changes the enforcement of the prohibition from the governor's energy office to the Department of Environmental Protection. It allows the department, instead of the office, to enter into that memorandum of understanding with Efficiency Main Trust for technical assistance. It specifies that any appliance or product proposed to be regulated under this bill is exempt from those prohibitions proposed in the bill if such state regulation of the appliance or product is preempted by federal statute or regulation, so long as that federal preemption remains in effect. And it allows the department to incorporate by rule recent changes to the California appliance efficiency regulations instead of requiring the submission of an annual report to the legislature describing recent or anticipated changes to California regulation and whether the law in Maine should be amended. So it simplifies that process, which was one of the concerns that CTA had expressed. Those that submitted testimony or spoke at the hearing, there were some amendments offered in testimony. The list is in there. I'm just going to pull something up really quick. Sorry, I have my paper here. So Philip Squire from the National Electric Manufacturers Association said remove the inclusion of general service lamps, including any associated definition, because regulation at the state level is preempted by federal law. Matt Sigler from the plumbers, sorry, The Plumbing Manufacturing International said the proposed effective sale date of the bill should be based on appliances and products that are manufactured on or after 1/1/23 to allow for sell-through of existing products. David Gibson from Sierra Club said that the bill should be amended to extend new efficiency requirements to water heating and home heating appliances and require all fossil fuel powered water heaters, furnaces, boilers, and space heaters sold in the state to achieve 95% combustion efficiency when the bill takes effect on 1/1/23 and phase out the sale of these by 2030 at the latest. And Curtis Picard from the Retail Association of Maine said the penalty violations specified in the bill could result in potentially harsh penalties because right now it stands at no more than $100 for each unit of a product sold or offered for sale. And some products included in the bill cost less than $100 and are sold in higher volumes. So their suggestion was to amend the language to establish a more consistent penalty and perhaps delete the reference to each unit of product sold or offered for sale. At this point, no fiscal impact has been determined. And as you can see, when you look at the bill analysis, I've included the proposed amendment from Representative Pluker as part of that, but I also sent it to interested parties in the committee yesterday as well.
Yes, Representative Tucker.
Thank you, Senator. I would like to move ought to pass as amended on LD 940. And I note that Mr. Pluker, Representative Pluker, has raised his hand in the attendees column, and I'd like to hear from him to ask him if he could run through the bill and kind of do a markup of any changes that he thinks should be made in his amendment.
I'll make a second to that.
And also to get a sense of whether or not we can vote on this today or not.
Okay. So let's bring Representative Pluker on over through the wormhole.
Have I been seconded?
By Representative Gramlich, yes.
Thank you.
Welcome, Representative Pluker.
Thank you very much for having me.
Would you be willing to go on through the amendments?
Yeah, the primary amendment that we're seeing here is that we're taking it out of the Energy Office and we're putting it in under the auspices of the Department of Environmental Protection, which is actually the way it was originally offered in the 129th. And but then in negotiations with both offices, ended up at Energy Office, and now we're back with the DEP, which is great, and that works well for me. I think the other big change that we're doing there is because of the fact that the Energy Office didn't have regulatory power and the power to write rules and that kind of thing. We had given them the ability to report back to the legislature. The legislature would make the changes in statute. And in this situation, we're going back to the original idea of having DEP write the rules directly, which I think is good. I think it gives the power for the standards to be a little bit more nimble in how they react to what needs to be done on the national level, and in reflecting more directly what is happening within the California Code of Regulation. Your analyst mentioned the $100 per violation. I personally do not feel that I would like to see. I don't need the monetary fine on this. That was something that was brought up, I believe, in the drafting with OPLA originally in the 129th. So I'd be interested to hear further if that's still the feeling coming from OPLA around that. If there is a violation, there needs to be a financial fine associated with it. But I'm open to moves the committee might want to make on that choice.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Tucker, do you have a follow-up for Representative Pluker?
Yes, I do. I'd like to ask if Mr. Pluker could go through the suggestions that were made that he has not adopted and explain why he and You've been working with DEP, correct?
Yes, though I haven't spoken to them since the public hearing.
Okay, but I'd like to know on each of those suggestions, why you would defer them or not, why you would defer those other suggestions.
It is going to take me a moment here to pull up your analyst's report so that I can go through it line item by line item.
Well, I think that's appropriate to do.
Yes, great. I certainly will do it.
So Representative Tucker, you're specifically referring to the section of the analyst report that says other amendments offered in testimony?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Representative Kluger, if you're having trouble finding it, I can read them off to you sort of individually and we can walk through it that way if that's helpful, or we can screen share.
I'm getting there. We're at
We'll be patient.
Thank you. Okay. Oh. You have been so quick at getting your work done this morning. I'm sorry to hold you up. But now I'm not seeing the blood report in the area I was going to, so perhaps I've gone to the wrong place. Go ahead, sorry.
No problem. Okay.
Do you want me to screen share it?
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be great, Deirdre. Thank you. Representative Tucker, I might put I'm going to go ahead and lower your. Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Great. Remove the inclusion of general service lamps, including any associated definition, because regulation at the state level is preempted by federal law. Yes. So right now the regulation of general service lamps is extremely complicated. There are some general service lamps which are preempted by federal law. Sorry. Was I doing well?
You're great.
Okay. There are some, but then there are others which is not fully covered under the definition of general service lamps. And because we tend to see within federal regulation, the moving back and forth of regulation depending upon political winds in DC, we think that it's important to go ahead and cover that now in state regulation. And then we can see there that under Section 2, there are exclusions of federal preemption, so that is taken care of within language that we have existing in the amendment. If you could put up the screen sharing again, unless there's questions about that aspect.
I will. I just had a technical issue and it closed everything out. So I'm just pulling it back up.
We're both having a hard time finding it. Great. The proposed effective sale date of the bill should be based on appliances, products that are manufactured on or after 1/23 to allow for sale through of existing products. And I would be okay with that amendment if the committee would like to do that. That would aid in that situation of getting the existing products out of the store's hands. This bill does not go into effect until, I believe okay, so the bill doesn't go into effect till 2023 anyway, so you would think that most of those products will already be off the shelves by the time there is any impact. But if the committee would like to do that, then I'm open to it as well. Amend the bill to extend new efficiency requirements to water heating and home heating appliances, require all fossil fuel. So I think that's very admirable. The intent of that amendment, certainly in line with the intent of the entire bill. There originally in the 129th, we had a much broader collection of appliances that we wanted to address with this bill. And we ended up restricting it to a very large degree because of the difficulty around implementing new standards that are not implemented in other parts of the country, as well as the additional work that's required by the regulating authority. So in this case, the DEP, in order to create those standards, and enforce them. So this bill, one of the reasons that we are going based off of the California standards is because it's the easiest to be effective from a bureaucratic point of view. And so that was why the appliances of that sort are not included in this bill at this time. We do give regulatory power within this bill to DEP so that if they decided that they wanted to expand the regulations or update them in some manner, I believe they would have the power to do so. And then, then we mentioned the $100 for each unit. I am not a fan of the $100 per unit section of this bill, but was advised that from a legal point of view, if there is a civil violation, that a number should be associated with it.
Okay, great. Representative Tucker. Thank you for that, Representative Fluker. That was helpful.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to conclude the discussion in any way. I simply would like to clarify the motion ought to pass as amended. My motion includes the switch back from the governor's policy office to the DEP. I think everybody understands that in order to give the rulemaking authority and so forth. I would like to incorporate additional changes to strike the language about $100 per unit and simply make it a penalty of $100, period.
Okay.
And trust that most people are going to go along with these regulations because they make sense. I would also like to adopt the amendment proposed by Mr. Sigler, that it have a protection so that they can sell through stuff manufactured. I'm not sure how it's phrased. Manufactured before January 1st of 23.
Great.
Ms. Deidre, yeah, okay. I
You're all
would
set,
not,
Deirdre.
Deidre, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just a little nervous.
You're doing great.
Also, that we not adopt the more progressive amendment of the Sierra Club at this time. I think I can agree with the sponsor that we have enough to go with at this time. And so those would be the amendments that I would make. Thank you very much.
And does our second agree? Okay. So we have a second on the amendments. Any additional discussion? So we have a question on the floor. Are we ready for a vote? Yes, Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will not be supporting the pending motion for a multitude of reasons, but mostly that I don't want the state of Maine regulated by the state of California. And it's I have not seen any definitive statement of the measured improvement in energy consumption by the enactment of this legislation. So without numbers to back it up, it appears to be simply follow the biggest state in the nation to feel good. And I don't need to feel good doing this kind of stuff. So I will not be supporting it, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Hanley. All right. Any other comments? All right, we have a question on the floor. We're ready for a vote.
Okay. Senator Brenner.
Yes.
Representative Tucker.
Yes.
Senator Bennett. Absent. Representative Hanley.
No.
Senator Carney. Absent. Representative Bell.
Yes.
Representative Bloom.
Yes.
Representative Dudera.
Yes.
Representative Gramlich.
Yes.
Representative Johansson.
No.
Representative O'Connor.
No.
Representative Toole. Absent. Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
I just need to see you while you say it. Oop, he disappeared.
Transmission rates have doubled. Can you speak to those cost drivers briefly?
I don't have the ability to mute our friend. Sabrina, do you?
No.
That sounded a lot like the EUT committee meeting that's going on right now.
That's exactly what it is. It's coming from, oh, there he goes. Okay.
So we'll take that as an absent for. All right. What is the minority report?
Can you hear me and see me now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Now?
No.
Okay, well, obviously I'm going to have to register a yes vote later, I assume. If I can get through
Oh,
in the
there
next.
you are. We can see you. Can you say
Yes,
one more
yes,
time?
yes. Okay.
Okay.
And now I'm going to disappear into the abyss soon, okay? Because I'm having a lot of problems with the internet.
Thank you so much, Representative Ziegler. Yes, Representative O'Connor.
Thank you. Minority report is ought not to pass.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that that there's a need to invest. I'd like to do it.
There we go. Goodness, what a morning.
It's very handy for me. I can be in two places at once.
All right. Do you want to read us the?
Yes. So the final was 7 yes, 3 no, and 3 absent.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, everyone. And next up, we have some, that brings us to the end. And thank you, Representative Fluker, for joining us and helping us think this through. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, committee.
So with that, we are through all of our work sessions for this morning, and we will move into a bit of language review.
So the only bill I have up today is LD 593. This was a unanimous report, and it's an act to restore eelgrass mapping in the state. If you recall, the only amendment that occurred to the bill was just adding the addition of salt marsh to the vegetation mapping. So that was the only change in language throughout the whole thing. I will screen share because the fiscal note came in, just so you have that for your reference, because I just sent it out a few minutes ago. So the way they structured the amendment, so it looks like it's a lot more than it is. They did strike and replace out section 1 just to incorporate the addition of salt marsh vegetation mapping in there, but nothing's changed other than the addition of that. But it looks more significant on paper. So the fiscal note pretty much almost mirrors what was in the bill for the appropriations and allocation sections. I will note that the amounts are a little bit higher than was in the bill, because the bill was using amounts from last legislature. And so some of those costs have gone up a little bit, but they're not significant changes. So if there's no questions on that, or if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, thank you. Oh, Representative Tucker. You're on mute.
So that can be released for the upcoming session on the uncontested bills list. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. All right, is there anything else on our list today that I'm missing? That you all? No, okay. I think we have reached the end of a day. I'm grateful for your charitable patience and everyone's grace. And I think that concludes today. Is that a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved.
We'll see you all on Monday morning. Take care.